r/ask Reddit. What's the craziest reason you had to fire someone? We had someone fall asleep at his desk with a lit cigarette in his hand. In office full of cubicles like maybe 6-7 years ago, smoking wasn't legal anywhere indoors, let alone in an office building LMAO. And the first time he wasn't even fired. He was fired when it happened again. Had a guy on my team start smoking a cigarette at his desk. He was diabetic, and when confronted it was clear he was low on blood sugar. A soda later and he was quickly himself. Dumba stole a $100 bill out of the register at the end of his first shift alone on register. He didn't know about cash balancing? If someone is dumb enough to steal that much out of a register, I don't think knowledge is enough to stop them. Firing's done because people do not realize that the cash gets counted. They activated a gift card for $100 and keyed in $100, as if someone had paid $100 for the gift card. Of course, that night the drawer was $100 short, and activation was on the receipt. She was already on the radar under suspicion of taking a $20 from the drawer. Then $20 disappeared from another drawer, but not one she had been using. Her cashier number was not on the record, except the security footage did show doing something at the register. Turns out, she memorized another employee's cashier number. Sneaky, but not sneaky enough. A firing done for other reasons. One employee was fired for pretending to ring up his friend. He could have gotten away with it. He scanned everything on price check mode, pretended to swipe his buddy's credit card, and fed a length of blank register tape out as if a receipt were printed out. No one noticed anything off, except his buddy never asked him to do it. The cashier took it upon himself to hook him up, and at the end the friend was left thinking what the duck just happened. He felt so guilty the next day he brought the items back and told the manager what had happened. Years ago, at a lumber company, had a guy, less than 2 hours after he started on his first day, pick up his car with a forklift and stand underneath it to see what was rattling when he drove. Turned out it was his brain. His head wasn't screwed on tight. It was probably the nut behind the wheel. I work at an art studio where we teach classes and sell pottery that our artists make for others to paint. I'm one of the artists and the manager. I started getting a funny feeling about one of my employees. She wasn't doing anything blatantly wrong, just seemed to work really slowly sometimes, request insignificant but kind odd schedule changes, and have different break habits from the other staff. I started feeling like she was stealing, but this is a really small business so I didn't have her on camera or any way to really prove it, until she accidentally sent me a video of herself painting pieces that I made from her home. What an idiot. I worked at a retail store and found one of my co-workers was using the company iPad that we used to play music and order lunches to go on Craigslist and search for hookups. She didn't even bother to delete the search history. What did she search for? It was back when casual encounters was a thing on Craigslist. She was 18 and seemed to be drawn to men at least 20 years her senior. Eek. One of my nurses was chasing another down the hall with a scalpel in her hand, screaming at the top of her lungs, "I'm going to cut you, bitch." What was the backstory? Nurses are like anchors. She was practicing to become a surgeon, but her bedside manner was atrocious. I worked at a pet store and was the lead cashier, so I had to train this girl who didn't think she had to abide by the uniform because it's just store name and doesn't count as a real job. That was a warning that despite her thinking she did need to follow the uniform rules. Then when ringing up customers, she actually told customers they couldn't buy certain items because we were running low and she planned on getting a pet soon and wanted these items. I apologized and rung them up. Second warning with me explaining how that's not how it works and she could shop when she's off the clock. Finally my manager fired her when she tried to steal one of the cats that were up for adoption after being told she needed to wait for approval after they do a home visit and make sure she can care for the cat. Her excuse for trying to steal the cat? Her landlord doesn't allow pets, so she wouldn't be approved and she'd be a much better pet parent than anyone else who wanted the cat and much better than any of the customers we got. The girl didn't even last a week. How strict are those home visits? Do you know what it takes to get refused? Well, the first thing is a letter from your landlord, proof of home ownership, so she was just all around not feeling the whole thinking things through thing that day. CEO ordered me to fire one of my interns because he was trying to hit on one of the other interns the CEO had the hots for. I'm curious how you were told to fire him. Was it just hey fire that guy? Or did he actually say I've got the hots for that intern he's hitting on and I won't stand for it? He said get rid of that guy after that guy asked her to do something after work. Everyone knew that particular intern was off limits. Fired a guy for looking to pay someone to cast black magic on the owner and the owner's family to bewitch them into giving him a raise and, ironically, never firing him. Only reason I found out was because he asked someone else in the office for help in finding a witch doctor to cast the spells and word got round. No one wanted to be in the same room as him after that. When I confronted him he said the devil made him do it so it wasn't his fault. I live in the Middle East. I definitely did not wake up expecting to fire someone for black magic that day. Side note, practicing black magic is literally a death sentence here. He's gonna post about firing his witch doctor. A guy shaved trimmed off his pubes and left them scattered across a shared desk in a shared office. When confronted, he pulled a George Costanza. Oh, is that frowned upon? Yes. I was a bartender slash bar manager. This guy came in one night and said he was an aspiring DJ and asked if we would consider hiring him to come in just on Sunday nights to DJ for us. He said we wouldn't have to pay him at first. He would just take tips and we could renegotiate after he helped to build up our Sunday night crowd. He lasted less than 3 months. He drove away so much business and I got so many complaints. He played the same songs every week and when people made requests for commonly known songs, he had no idea who they, the musicians, were. I had to fire someone who was working for free. He was a nice guy, which is the only reason he lasted as long as he did. This is both sad and hilarious at the same time. I am a chef at an upscale restaurant. The sauté cook has a lobster dish on his station that involves a technique called deglazing that involves alcohol, so in turn the pan catches on fire briefly and flames up. When you do it correctly, hard to do it incorrect, the alcohol is cooked off and the flame goes out. Every time he made this dish he would deglaze the pan, catch it on fire and then blow it out, blowing his own germs and nastiness all over someone's food and everything in the blast radius. That was a week ago. Fired him after he did it multiple times after being asked not to. Maybe it's because of the current state of affairs, but I couldn't believe a trained cook would do that. I am a mere prep cook decent line experience, and I can't believe someone would do that. Pandemic or not, it's just not what you do. It's like cutting cheese into tiny pieces instead of using a grater. Fired a high schooler because his girlfriend kept showing up and they would disappear behind the racks. I told him his girlfriend was banned trying to not fire him and she kept sneaking back. Worked in an office and they hired a girl from a temp agency to help me. She wouldn't do anything unless I walked her through each step after telling her she had to do it. Hey, an estimate just arrived on the fax right next to you. Complete the quote and send it back. Come to find out she was playing Spider and Solitaire on her computer. She was also sneaking out back in the warehouse. Guys thought she was doing drugs. I told my boss get rid of her. I would rather work alone than babysit her, so he called the temp agency and told them to stop sending her. She showed up the next day, so boss sent her home and called the agency saying hey, she is useless, stop sending her. She showed up again the next day. This went on for over a week. The people at the temp agency said they told her to stop showing, but she kept coming in every morning. Mind you, usually 10 to 20 minutes late. My boss wouldn't say anything to her face, so finally I said hey, we can't afford to pay you, so we had to let you go through the temp agency. They should have told you. She was all oh, I thought they were joking. I was so glad she was gone. Imagine being so useless that working alone is literally easier. You'd be surprised. I had a co-worker who we nicknamed -1 because when she showed up, she actively contributed less than nothing to the shift. She actively undid people's efforts to be useful. They stole a $3 bottle of wine that could have easily put on the house check for employees. Prep cook stole a 25-pound bag of onions. One thing I loved about working in a restaurant was getting stuff in bulk. We could always ask my boss for 25 pounds of onions and he'd buy them at the restaurant supply depot and sell them to us at cost. Same for kegs, meat, base ingredients, whatever. It was dope. One of our cooks was also a sushi chef. One time we had the boss pick up just a duck ton of sushi stuff and sashimi grade fish. The sushi dude then taught us how to make sushi and we ate like kings for a couple days. The difference was, we always paid for it, and if the boss needed us to work an extra shift, cover someone who no-showed, or even help him clean his pool, then we always said yes. Plus he's hook us up with free beer constantly. LOL, this is a good example of symbiosis in humans. I use you. You use me. Neither is harmed. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.